Hello and welcome to Justice. I'm Judge Jeanine Pirro. Thanks for being with us tonight. Tonight, America faces the single biggest threat in her more than 200-year history. Worse than what we faced in World War I, World War II, the attack on Pearl Harbor, and Al-Qaeda on 9/11. I'm telling you, ISIS, if not already on American soil, will be here. They are coming. And whether they come as a legion or lone wolves, the damage will be painful and it will be extensive. It will happen here on our soil. You're fortunate that you live in a country virtually untouched by war, while in other parts of the world, it's their daily fare. Except for military families, the horrors that we watch on the news could just as well be a world away. But now, this is close. The simple truth, we are not prepared and certainly not ready. Lone wolves arrested in Washington State, Rochester, New York, and Colorado. I've been telling you for months that you need to be afraid. Now you know me. Most of the time, I'm fearless. I've spent my life fighting, investigating, prosecuting, and sentencing the worst of the worst. But tonight, I'm worried. You may not know where places like Baghdad, Aleppo, Tehran, or Fallujah are, but if you don't think that what happens there matters to you, you're wrong. And I don't care if you live in Beaumont, Texas, New York City, or Anaconda, Montana. You need to be afraid. And what we need to do. My resolution? Airstrikes. Bomb them. Bomb them, keep bombing them, bomb them again and again. And I don't care how long it takes. Just take out ISIS, take out their convoys, and take out those troops. You may have thought it was good TV, even entertaining. But you now know it's not a joke. 2 Americans beheaded by an English-speaking barbarian, a third a Brit, while a 4th is lined up for the most brutal, savage, end-of-life experience imaginable. These are not amateurs. They are experts at the systematic, pervasive torture, mass killings, rape, public crucifixions, beheadings, some even videotaped and used as a propaganda tool to entice those who believe in evil and want to impose hell on the rest of us under the guise of their God. The ISIS terror group owns oil fields. They have a corporate structure, and they bring in $3 million a day selling oil. They leverage technology to glorify and recruit more jihadists, all while the world watches while we dither and call them a JV team. But like a lion waiting to attack, they watch their prey. They analyze us. They read us. Do we act when Americans are in danger? Do we even react? Almost 2 years to arrest the Benghazi ringleader. They know our vulnerabilities and strengths. At times, they are one and the same. We are a free and open society with risks inherent in each. They know the border is not only open, they know they'll be welcomed with no papers at all. And this week's arrests in Australia magnify the global reach of ISIS, where random kidnappings and public beheadings were planned, all linked to ISIS. Their intent was to actually behead random members of the public. You, anyone. And they call these demonstration killings designed to shock and horrify. Yes, everything I've been telling you for months is accurate. You need to think September 11, 2001. You need to remember what it felt like then. Don't sit there and think the government has you covered. Hell, the White House itself and its perimeter were penetrated twice in the last 24 hours. And think Boston, as in Boston bombers. 2 brothers, 1 a teen, here on asylum as victims of another country. We do everything for them. And when another country calls to tell us not once but twice that they're a terror risk, our FBI investigates and concludes that they're not. And when the older brother goes back and forth to the country from which he sought asylum, he's not stopped upon his return to the U.S. by ICE or Homeland Security. These two brothers had the whole city of Boston on lockdown with a couple of pressure cookers. FBI, state police, local police, ATF, all looking for one team. Do you think anyone would be able to respond to your needs in such a situation? Not a chance. No one is taking this seriously enough. If our government were listening, our borders would be closed. If our government were listening, we'd be bombing ISIS nonstop. And if they were listening, our president would be following the advice of the military experts united on the issue of boots on the ground. But instead, our president thinks he knows more than the military experts. A disagreement highlighted this week and virtually unseen in American history. And if our government were listening, we would never have gotten out of Iraq the way that we did, with the consequences that George Bush predicted and even Leon Panetta said was a mistake. And if the government were listening, they would raise the terror threat level. When people are willing to commit war crimes on camera, they are not afraid of us. And if only you were listening this time, I'm telling you to batten down the hatches. Make plans to reach family members in the event of an emergency. Teach your children to be alert. Get supplies that might not be as easily available. Check what your kids, even teens, are looking at online. It's time for us to come together and take the threat seriously. And that's my open.
Back when you watched the Stars and Stripes being lowered for the last time in Baghdad, were you confident in that moment that pulling out was the right thing to do?
No, I wasn't. I really thought that it was important for us to maintain a presence in Iraq.
With me now are Iraq and Afghanistan war veteran, CEO of Concerned Veterans for America, and Fox News contributor Pete Hegseth, and former State Department official Christian Whitehead. Good evening, gentlemen. Look, President Obama's Secretary of Defense, Leon Panetta, Robert Gates, also a Secretary of Defense, both of them criticizing Obama's military decisions. Why isn't he listening to these guys, both of whom he put in place? Pete, I'll start with you.
Well, it's a bipartisan consensus at this point. We've seen through this administration, President Obama is more interested in listening to his political advisors than he is to his military generals. And you're starting to see that now with the battle plan against ISIS. He's laying out front what we're not going to do as far as boots on the ground. Whereas you're starting to hear percolating behind the scenes, both those in the administration, Dempsey, outside the administration, Gates, Panetta, Petraeus, saying it's sort of foolish both to play your cards up front, but also to rule it out if you're going to truly seek to destroy. So you're starting to see
a wedge
being driven that we've known about for a long time.
Pete, the question is, everybody knows we need boots on the ground. I haven't met anybody who says we don't need boots on the ground. If we're not going to partner with Iran, and we're not going to partner with Syria, and we're not going there, whose boots are going to be on the ground? That's number one. But why isn't the president listening? Does he think he knows more than our military advisors?
You know what, I'll tell you this, for President Obama, Iraq is a four-letter word, and not just Iraq, but it is a place he refuses to want to go back to. I mean, he staked his presidency, even as a candidate before the war, on the fact that he was going to end the war in Iraq. He wants to continue to say, I ended the war. So regardless of the situation now, I think he sees his legacy as a war ender in Iraq, and that's what he cares about. And so he's trying to do everything he can to maintain that stance.
Christian, what say you on this? Just quickly, why is he not listening?
Well, he just thinks he knows better, and this has been, throughout this administration. Why is Hillary Clinton and now John Kerry able to travel essentially endlessly? Real decisions are actually made in the White House. They're not made out at agencies. And the fact that his cabinet is constantly traveling is part of the symptom that they're just not being listened to. They're not involved. It comes down to Valerie Jarrett. It comes down to Susan Rice. It's really just Obama's very tight inner circle of sycophants giving him ideas, and none of these people have really any experience or any decent track record on military affairs or strategic affairs.
Clearly, but even the generals are saying the Iraqis that and the moderate Syrian rebels, they can do. They're saying they're not 50% up to the task. But my question is, how do we know who's moderate and who isn't moderate, Pete?
I don't know that we do fully, and that's why there's a lot of people of mixed minds about the training and arming of the Free Syrian Army. Listen, we need someone to be in Syria taking the fight to folks like ISIS, al-Nusra Front, and because we've said Assad's got to go, it's not going to be him. So Congress is looking, and Congress passed a bill to train them and authorize them. But it's not clear, Judge, it just isn't, that these are folks who are moderate or that they're anything more than a shell force. It's not a short-term answer. It's a long-term approach that won't manifest itself in defeating ISIS. So we can't know, Judge.
Christian,
we really can't. And we don't have a perfect track record on that.
Do they just show up, Christian, and say, hey, I'm a moderate, and we give them a grenade launcher? I mean, how do we know?
Well, we have an $80 billion a year intelligence bureaucracy, so they sure as hell better know. And if they don't, then we really need to start cutting and reforming that radically. But the go or no go shouldn't be moderate versus, conservative, which is sort of a phony breakdown. It should be whether you're an Islamist, whether you favor theocracy and the unification of mosque and state, or whether you're secular. And you can be a virulent conservative Muslim that I don't want to spend Friday night with, but be a secularist, and we should support those people.
Okay. All right, Pete and Christian, thanks so much for being with us this evening.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right.
Wasn't the situation in Libya and Benghazi somewhat unique?
So when you look at the intelligence, the threat reporting, the deteriorating security environment, and the numerous incidents, I would prioritize Benghazi.
If you were an agent on the ground in Benghazi at the time, Mr. Kai, would you have been lobbying for more help to come to Benghazi?
I'd probably be doing more than lobbying. I'd be extremely frustrated and try to push every button I could possibly push.
That's Congressman Jim Jordan and former Assistant Secretary for Infrastructure Protection at the Department of Homeland Security, Todd Keel, one of the three who testified at the new Benghazi hearings this week. And with me now, Congressman Lynn Westmoreland, a member of that Benghazi Select Committee. Thank you for being with us this evening, Congressman. As I sat there, I couldn't help but notice the stunning similarities between the reports of previous accountability review boards and the Benghazi Accountability Review Board. Why are we making the same mistakes over and over again?
Well, I think, Judge, the reason is it's pretty a bureaucratic department. The State Department, we really haven't been able to hold anybody accountable. But the reality of it is, if you look at the manual and if you look at these reports, the Secretary of State is responsible, personally is responsible for the safety of our diplomats and the people serving in our embassies, and that's pretty clear in the manual.
But doesn't it seem that they're trying to take that responsibility away from the Secretary of State and kind of reprioritize that they have all these new charts? And I don't want to get into the weeds here, but it's almost like we're not going to blame the Secretary of State, whose mission it is to make sure that the people around the world on their posts are safe. We're not going to make her responsible or him responsible. It's retroactive, as it seems.
Well, Judge, you were there and you witnessed that chart that Ms. Brooks put up, and you could see how confusing that was. And that's been the other thing. We have been trying to get information out of the State Department about, okay, well, who said no additional security? Who said let's pull that Marine unit out? And, we have been unable to get those emails and text, cables, or whatever to find out really and truly who made that decision. Now, they have put some people on leave or demoted or put them in the penalty box, but we really don't know that those were the people that were actually at fault.
Do you think we'll ever know who made the decision after they were asking for increased security to actually reduce the security? Do you think we'll ever get the answer to that?
You know, I hope we will. Chairman Gowdy has made his goal, as well as the Speaker, that we're going to find out the truth. And I think we will. And I think we'll be relentless until we do get that truth. But we got to have some cooperation from the State Department and from this administration so we can get all the information to lead us to the facts.
Well, you know, this week a former State Department official officially accused Hillary Clinton's chief of staff for hiding politically damaging files from the allegedly independent arbitrary review board that probed the attack. Now, I know you didn't get into the Hillary piece when I was there, but do you expect to call her to testify?
Well, Judge, I think that anybody that has any information about what led up to the attacks in Benghazi, about the attacks itself, and about what happened after the attacks are certainly going to be looked at as potential witnesses.
Are you going to call Hillary Clinton? Do you know, Congressman?
That's up to Chairman Gowdy.
All right, blame it on Trey Gowdy. Now, finally,
yeah, I'll blame it on Trey.
You know, one of the things that concerns me before we wrap up, you know, we heard all about these tripwire warnings that just didn't work and didn't work, and then changing the name of the facility so you wouldn't even have to get a waiver. It's almost as though they wanted to hide the fact that there was a consulate there. What were they doing there that they wanted to hide it and take it out of any kind of category that was recognized in the State Department?
Well, you know, that's just the semantics that this White House plays. I mean, you know, the Clintons played it, you know, what is. And this president does it with terms all the time about, well, that's not the meaning, this is it. They did the same thing, trying to get away from having to follow the rules of how to protect the people there through their security authorization. So it's just another you know, rabbit trail that we're going to have to follow to find out why they changed these names. But you know, I mean, it's very interesting that this gentleman has come forward and said that they were down destroying Maxwell, looking at these documents and trying to take out the ones that made the secretary look bad.
Right.
And you know, that's just that's really unbelievable.
Yeah, it is unbelievable. Okay. And I am sure that your committee is going to try to get to the bottom of it. Congressman Westmoreland, thank you so much for being with us this evening.
Well, thank you, Judge.
All righty.